the world's most oppressive dictator. How does he maintain control? What is daily life like in North Korea? You might feel suffocated just thinking about it. The government dictates every aspect of its citizens' lives. Where they'll live, what jobs they'll have, what they'll study. Every decision is made by the state. Your clothes, your haircut, the films you watch, all chosen by the regime. Your phone's operating system secretly takes screenshots at random. Those screenshots are sent directly to the government, so they always know what you're doing. A crime committed by one person can mean punishment for their entire family, even their grandchildren. The infamous law of guilt by association. Even within families, trust is a luxury. Siblings, parents, children, everyone lives in fear of each other. Yet in recent years, Kim Jong-un's grip on power has begun to weaken. A silent revolution is brewing, led by the women of North Korea. Hello, friends. In 1981, a pregnant woman was thrown into North Korea's notorious political prison, Camp Notion 14. She gave birth behind bars, naming her son Shin Dong-hyuk. This child would know nothing of the outside world, only life in a prison camp. The North Korean regime enforces collective punishment. If one person commits a political crime, their entire family is imprisoned. Punishment stretches across 3 generations. If a grandfather is guilty, even his grandson will suffer. That is why Shin Dong-hyuk was born in a prison camp, because the government deemed his bloodline impure. His childhood was spent in unimaginable conditions. He survived on thin corn porridge, eating grass and rats to stay alive. Camp number 14 held around 20,000 prisoners, and its rules were brutally simple. Attempt an escape, you will be shot. Hear someone planning an escape but fail to report it, you will be executed too. When Shin Dong-hyuk was just 13 years old, he overheard his mother and brother whispering about escaping. He didn't understand much. He was just a hungry child. So he went to the guards, thinking they might give him extra food. 7 months later, all the prisoners were gathered in the yard. Shin Dong-hyuk was made to stand at the front, and in front of his eyes, the guards executed his mother by hanging. His brother was shot dead. Shin was forced to watch it all. After that, for 6 months, he was brutally tortured. In 2005, at the age of 23, Shin Dong-hyuk attempted to escape. Luck was on his side. He made it out. Avoiding the guards, he fled North Korea, reached China, and then South Korea. And this is how the world came to know his story. Shin later became a human rights activist. His voice reached the United Nations. A famous book was written about him, Escape from Camp 14. In the Bible, we read about heaven and hell. When in hell, souls suffer in flames. That's what the prison camp was like. Based on stories from survivors like Shin, let's take a closer look at daily life in North Korea. How do ordinary people survive in the world's most terrifying dictatorship? North Korea has a population of 25 million. On the world map, you'll find it just above South Korea. To the west, it borders the giant China. But if you look at satellite imagery of this region at night, you'll see something strange. China and South Korea shine bright with lights, but in between them, just darkness. This is the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK. That's North Korea's official name, and yet it calls itself democratic. This alone tells you, just claiming democracy doesn't make a country democratic. In North Korea, people can't read at night. They can't watch TV. By 7 p.m., they go to sleep. They are simply used to living in darkness. In 1995, something bizarre was noticed. The frog population was declining. The reason? People were so hungry they had started hunting frogs for food. The famine between 1995 and 1998 was one of history's worst man-made disasters. The exact death toll remains unknown, but estimates range between 500,000 and 2 million deaths. Yet, North Korea wasn't always like this. There was a time when it was more prosperous than South Korea. In 1980, North Korea's per capita GDP was ahead of India and China. Healthcare was free. Education was free. Housing, heating, and transportation. Everything was provided. Between 1950 and 1980, North Korea's economy grew by 4.5% annually. But then came the 1990s. The collapse of the Soviet Union changed everything. In Moscow, the hammer and sickle were lowered for the last time, and an era came to an end. The Soviet Union had been North Korea's lifeline. It supplied cheap oil and food. With the USSR gone, North Korea's economy crumbled. Power plants shut down, lights went out, people starved. The US offered aid, but with one condition: North Korea had to abandon its nuclear program, but they refused, so the US and the world cut them off. Then came a devastating flood in 1995. North Korea had no cash, no credit, no resources. But instead of helping its people, the government refused to compromise. And so, things worsened year after year. The government focused not on fixing the crisis, but on hiding it. In Pyongyang, the capital city, they wanted to maintain an illusion. So they removed all homeless and starving people from the streets. Ruling party members lived comfortably in the city, but outside Pyongyang, people were dying of hunger. In his book, The Great North Korean Famine, Andrew Natsios revealed chilling details. Families had to make heartbreaking choices. Elderly relatives were left to starve, so younger members could survive. Some grandparents willingly chose death so their children could eat. Why did this happen? Because North Korea is a totalitarian dictatorship. After W. When Japan lost control of the Korean peninsula, the US and the Soviet Union divided Korea into two. The South was placed under US influence. The North was placed under Soviet control. Germany suffered a similar fate after Hitler's defeat. It was split into East and West, one under the Soviet Union, the other under the US. And just like East Germany, North Korea became a communist state. A guerrilla fighter named Kim Il-sung became the nation's supreme leader, and since then, his family has ruled the country. Today, his grandson, Kim Jong-un, holds absolute power. But North Korea isn't just a communist dictatorship. It is a family-run dictatorship. Every decision the government makes serves one purpose: keeping the Kim family in control. Where people live, what jobs they do, what they study, all controlled by the regime. Even television, the internet, travel, everything is tightly regulated. Education is free and compulsory. But there's little real education in schools. Teachers often ignore students unless they are bribed. Only wealthy families can afford private tutors. It's a privilege to live in Pyongyang, and an even bigger privilege for your children to attend top institutions. The government shows off elite schools to the world. But outside Pyongyang, reality is different. After school, a student's future depends on two things: family background and bribery. Men must serve in the military for up to 10 years. Politics? Every 5 years, North Korea holds elections. But there's only one candidate per seat, from the ruling Workers' Party. If you vote against them, you're labeled a traitor. The secret police will visit your home and declare you insane. This is why voter turnout is 99.9%. Everyone votes. But the government uses this as an unofficial census to keep track of people. The government even controls fashion. Clothing and hairstyles are strictly regulated. Only 15 hairstyles are approved for men. Only 15 for women. A 2017 news article showed the official list of male haircuts. One thing missing? Kim Jong-un's hairstyle. No one else is allowed to have it. Even his glasses are off limits for ordinary people. Dyeing hair? Banned. Blue jeans? Ripped jeans? Skinny jeans? All banned. Branded clothing? Not allowed. It's seen as Western influence. Tight dresses, short skirts, sun hats, also banned. Women can't wear red lipstick. Makeup is restricted to minimal amounts. But who enforces these rules? North Korea has a fashion police. I'm not joking. Anyone violating dress codes is stopped. Offenders might have their clothes cut. Some are fined, others are jailed. Why does the government care so much? They see fashion as a cultural invasion. If people start liking foreign things, they might stop worshiping their leader. North Korea takes this so seriously that in 2005, they launched a propaganda campaign just about hairstyles. Let's cut our hair according to the socialist way of life. This series of propaganda claimed that long hair is unhealthy and reduces a person's intelligence. In North Korea, the development of new products and services for the common people is almost non-existent. When compared to our country, where technological advancements like UPI have flourished, their progress in every sector is minimal. In any nation with progress, technological services evolve as well. One of the core elements of this totalitarian regime is controlling people's movements. Citizens can't travel from one part of the country to another without government approval, including providing the purpose for their travels. This is just for domestic travel. However, if someone wants to travel internationally, stricter restrictions apply. No one can leave the country without government permission, and doing so is considered an act of treason. If caught, the entire family can be punished, with consequences including forced labor, torture, life imprisonment, or even death. The story of Shin Dong-hyuk that I mentioned at the start of the video. Do you know why his entire family was imprisoned in a labor camp? It's because his uncle had fled to South Korea, leading to multiple generations of his family being incarcerated. The North Korean government takes this so seriously that, after COVID, border guards were given a shoot-to-kill order for anyone attempting to leave or enter the country without authorization. This led to 14 people being killed. Despite the dangers, many still attempt to escape the country. Most try to flee to China, as the land border there is easier to navigate. However, China is also a dictatorship, and the Chinese government hands over these escapees back to North Korea. In 2023, for instance, China deported about 500 people back to North Korea. When it comes to entertainment, no foreign films are allowed in North Korea. The only TV and radio channels available are government-run, reinforcing the regime's propaganda. Morning broadcasts start with the national anthem and tributes to North Korea's past leaders. There are cartoons, news programs praising the regime, and of course, Kim Jong-un is presented as a god, creating fan hysteria comparable to that of a global star like Taylor Swift. A man of the people, even braving flood waters and dodging branches to save his citizens. Watching foreign movies or shows is a serious crime. Those caught face harsh punishment. For example, in 2022, 2 teenagers were sentenced to 12 years of hard labor for watching and distributing a South Korean drama. Imagine a child being imprisoned for 12 years just for watching a South Korean film. Such is the severity of the crime. In another case from 2022, a young man was publicly executed for watching and sharing South Korean films and music. Despite the harsh laws, there is a significant lack of entertainment in the country, leading people to secretly smuggle South Korean dramas. These films are often sold on the black market. In the past, DVDs were sold, and people would buy old Chinese DVD players to watch these shows at home. To catch offenders, government authorities would cut off electricity at random. When electricity is cut off, the CD or DVD gets stuck in the player and cannot be removed. This became an opportunity for authorities to enter homes in the dark and forcibly open DVD players to inspect the discs being played. Over time, people started using USB sticks, which were much easier to conceal. Although North Koreans lack access to the internet, they manage to watch smuggled movies and TV shows on their computers or Chinese video players with USB ports called Notels. While watching these foreign films, people close their windows and turn off the lights so that even their neighbors can't see what they're watching. They keep the volume at a barely audible level. Speaking of the internet, North Korea has an extremely restricted version. To access it, one needs government approval. Even after receiving permission, a librarian sits between each pair of users to monitor their searches. Every 5 minutes, the computer screen freezes, and to continue using it, the librarian's fingerprint is required. A person can use the internet for only 1 hour at a time, and if they need more time, they have to request additional approval from the government. For ordinary citizens, North Korea has created a controlled internal network, essentially an intranet. People use this on their phones and computers, but only a few government-approved websites are accessible. The government handpicks each one, and the network is so expensive that most people cannot afford it. Social media is non-existent in North Korea. Attempts to replicate websites like Facebook and Netflix have failed. The smartphones sold there are heavily censored. On these phones, international calls are impossible. At random times, the phone's operating system takes screenshots and sends them to the government, allowing them to monitor exactly what the person is doing. The software ensures only government-approved content is displayed, and there's no app store. If someone wants new content, they must visit a physical store to get it. Imagine how suffocating it must be to live in such an environment. North Korea is officially an atheist state, where practicing or preaching any religion is punishable by death. Christians are particularly targeted because they are viewed as influenced by the West. Thousands of Christians are imprisoned in political labor camps and tortured. In 2009, a woman named Ra Hyun-ok was publicly executed for distributing a Bible, and her husband and 3 children were sent to a labor camp. This reminds me of a line from the movie Oh My God. When you take away God from people, people will find God somewhere else. Don't take away religion from people, because if you do, they will follow you religiously. In North Korea, The Kim family is revered as something akin to a religion, especially Kim Il-sung, the first supreme leader, and Kim Jong-il, the second. They are worshipped like gods. Their pictures and statues are present in every home, school, office, and public space. No matter where you go in North Korea, you get the feeling of being watched by these two leaders, as if they are the big brother from George Orwell's 1984. Secret police patrol homes to ensure their pictures are properly displayed. If not, citizens can face prosecution. People are required to protect these images at any cost, even risking their own lives. There was an incident in 2020 where a woman, in the midst of her house burning down, chose to save her children instead of the pictures of the leaders. She underwent an investigation, and the government refused to provide medical treatment to her two children. In another case, a man's father was sent to a political prison camp for accidentally soiling a Kim Jong-il image in a newspaper. The economic situation for common people in North Korea is dire. 69% of the population is so poor that they can't afford basic necessities like food, clean water, education, and healthcare. Most households don't even have basic appliances like fridges, washing machines, or bicycles to help with daily life. A major reason for this is that almost all men in North Korea are assigned government jobs, where they are paid with a salary set before the 1990s. This wage is equivalent to receiving only 7 to 9 kilos of corn per month. In 2014, a doctor who fled North Korea reported that doctors only earned 3,500 won per month, which couldn't even buy them a kilogram of rice. Because men earn so little, most North Korean households are financially supported by women. Women aren't forced into government-assigned jobs, so they work in the local markets, called jangmadang, to make money. Women account for more than 70% of household income. When the government failed to provide food after the 1990s, people took matters into their own hands and began looking for ways to earn money. This led to the rise of local black markets, where people could sell goods and use the money to survive. These black markets, or jangmadang, have become the main source of income for families. Since most men are busy with government jobs, these markets are primarily run by women. They also serve as information hubs about life in other countries, where people learn about the freedoms and higher quality of life that other nations provide. Over time, many North Koreans have become disillusioned with their country. North Korea's population is divided into 3 classes based on political loyalty: the core class, loyal to the regime; the wavering class, who are uncertain or suspected; and the hostile class, considered enemies of the government. This system is called the Songbun system, as documented by the United Nations. In North Korea, the Songbun system determines nearly every aspect of a person's life: where they live, their occupation, their access to food, healthcare, education, and other government services. Even marriages are arranged based on Songbun. For instance, in the capital city of Pyongyang, most resources are allocated to beautifying the city, which mainly benefits those from the core class. People from the hostile class are prohibited from coming within 50 kilometers of the city. The government often monitors citizens through informants within their own families, and distrust runs deep as everyone is a potential spy. A woman was once sent to a political prison camp for 10 years because her daughter-in-law reported her for planning to escape the country with her son. If a family member commits a political crime, the entire family's Songbun status is downgraded. Another major issue is forced labor, a form of modern-day slavery. From construction and farming to working in mines and factories, citizens are compelled to work 12 to 18 hours a day. North Korea's economy relies heavily on this forced labor, with most resources being spent on weapons rather than civilian needs. Those incarcerated in detention centers and political prison camps endure the most extreme forced labor, often working in harsh conditions for minimal food. Prisoners often die from starvation, with 40% of deaths attributed to hunger, and many resort to eating rats, snakes, and even grass to survive. In extreme cases, food crumbs are not even wasted. In one particularly horrific case, a 7-year-old girl was beaten to death by a guard for eating fallen grains from the road. In political prison camp Noct 15, a prisoner was executed for stealing potatoes. Those who attempt to escape the camps are either killed by the guards or electrocuted by the perimeter fences. One account tells of a man, Shin Dong-hyuk, whose friend was electrocuted while attempting to escape, and his friend's body inadvertently allowed Shin to make it through the same hole in the fence. Former guards have revealed that, in the event of war or revolution, prisoners are to be killed to erase evidence of the camps. This tactic mirrors that of the Nazis during Dictatorship. In fact, the United Nations has condemned North Korea's human rights violations, likening them to those of the Nazis. Moreover, North Korea sends thousands of its citizens abroad for forced labor in countries like Russia, China, and even parts of Africa. In some cases, North Koreans have been sent to fight in wars, such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Approximately 100,000 North Koreans are subjected to forced labor outside the country. The secret police play a central role in maintaining the regime's power. They oversee and control all aspects of citizens' lives, from disappearing individuals to torturing them in political prison camps. The secret police employ spies and informants throughout the country, creating an atmosphere of constant suspicion. Even within families, individuals cannot trust each other, as anyone could be an informant. Neighborhood associations, which consist of 30 to 40 households, are tasked with monitoring and reporting on citizens. This omnipresent surveillance extends to every aspect of daily life. For example, in 2002, a leak of the government's phone book revealed that the phone numbers of secret police officers were classified as secret, not top secret. The true extent of the secret police's power remains largely unknown, as the public does not even know the names of its leaders. The North Korean dictatorship has endured for over 75 years due to a combination of cruelty, a rigid class system, and relentless propaganda. People live in constant fear, knowing that even minor infractions can result in death or imprisonment for their entire family. The three main factors that keep the regime in power are fear of punishment, the division of society into three classes, with loyalists at the top, and constant propaganda that portrays the supreme leader as a godlike figure. North Koreans are taught from birth that their leader is infallible, with stories of his miraculous feats, like learning to shoot a gun at the age of 3, fueling the myth of his divine power. In North Korea, the propaganda surrounding Kim Jong-un's image is taken to extreme lengths. Some stories about him are so far-fetched that they border on absurdity. For example, there's a tale that when his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, asked for an apple, Kim Jong-un supposedly requested a shovel because he wanted to bring the whole mountain to his grandfather. Such stories illustrate the level of myth-making in the country, where the leader is portrayed as almost superhuman. The state-run media serves only to further these fantasies, continually glorifying the government. When news from abroad is presented, it is always framed negatively, showing the rest of the world as suffering from corruption, disease, and disasters. Meanwhile, the narrative within North Korea paints the citizens as the happiest people on earth, led by their great leader, Kim Jong-un. This constant stream of state-sponsored propaganda is used to brainwash the populace, making it easier for the regime to maintain control. However, no dictatorship lasts forever, and there are signs that Kim Jong-un's control is weakening. One of the biggest indicators of this shift is the rise of Jangmadang, the underground markets predominantly run by women. When these markets first began, the government sought to shut them down, confiscating goods. But as the markets grew, they became a vital part of everyday life for many North Koreans, to the point where the government could no longer suppress them. The government's failure to control these markets led to a disastrous currency revaluation in 2009, which aimed to strip people of their private wealth, but only sparked massive public outrage. The government had to apologize and back down, a rare admission of failure. These black markets have also exposed North Koreans to foreign media and films, slowly breaking down the government's propaganda. People like Ju Yang, who left North Korea in 2010, began to see through the lies thanks to South Korean dramas and other media smuggled in on USB sticks. It's been reported that 81% of North Koreans who left the country had access to USBs, and nearly all of them contained illegal media, content that went against the state's narrative. Watching foreign movies together in secret has become a way for North Koreans to trust one another, as shared experiences form a new sense of unity among them, even in the face of the regime's surveillance. Corruption within the system is another factor eroding Kim Jong-un's power. Bribery has become a part of daily life in North Korea, with families having to bribe teachers for proper education and government officials depending on bribes for their income. As bribery becomes more common, people are less afraid of the government's strict rules, realizing they can circumvent them with enough money. This shift in mentality, where people are willing to break the law in exchange for bribes, signifies a growing disillusionment with the regime. These factors, growing unity through shared defiance, exposure to foreign media, and increasing corruption, are only in their early stages, but they suggest that Kim Jong-un's regime is not invincible. If these trends continue in the next 10 to 20 years, we might begin to hear more positive news from North Korea. History shows that every dictator sows the seeds of their own destruction, and it is a reminder to never take freedom for granted. The key lessons here are clear. First, unity among people is powerful, and no politician or political party should come between fellow citizens. Second, we must never allow government authorities to control every aspect of our lives, from the food we eat to the entertainment we consume. These should be personal choices, and no regime should have the power to dictate them. If you like this video, you can now get to know the story of another dictator in this video.